All right, we're recording.
Awesome.
So good to see you. We thought that we would share my screen and go through the most recent PWCC auction block. What is the best way to find it? Do the Charizard. Yes, there's a BGS 8.9.5 that we're talking about.
So one way of going through it can be, if you go to advanced, we can type in like the PWCC auctions. Like if you click on PWCC auctions, and then you highlight their thing, like PWCC auctions, or just their, just to get
also, I think just go to sold items,
and then we can go to sold items and put them in it as or we can do it this way too. Yeah. That works. They also have on their website for people, you can see they have like their own auction archives on PWCC directly that you can look at too.
Oh, nice. That's good to know. Do you want to look at the highest prices?
Yeah, sure. We can start with that. It won't be like all stuff from this past auction because it'll be mixed up, but
oh yeah, that's true.
I guess we can start with the Illustrator.
What do you think about that price?
I thought it was fine. Like there were people who thought it was too high. There were people who thought it was too low. I was just, there's no 7, has been sold to my knowledge recently. There have been like ungraded copies that have been selling like within this range, some a little bit higher, but they were potential 9 type candidates.
How many are there?
There are 39 known to exist right now, but at one point there were only expected to be like 4 or 6 or 9. So, I don't know. There could definitely be more in Japan. I don't feel super confident in any of these numbers not growing up over time and more extra copies coming out. There's always a fear that someone's going to have a bunch of extra copies of something like this. So,
yeah. And how about this one? I've never heard of this one before.
Sure. Yeah. This is a very high sale, I think. I was really, really surprised actually by how high this went. Although I think it's like compared to the Illustrator, I think it makes sense. I've always felt that the Illustrator was far too expensive compared to cards like this, personally. This is
does a number 2 trainer go only to the person who came in second place or also the first person who came in first place?
It's a good question. Just to the second place, and I don't believe there are any examples of where that isn't true, but I could be wrong about that.
So this is literally only one of these exists?
So the same this art existed for multiple years, and also there are a number of different divisions going on at once. So the winner or the second place of each of those divisions would get this card.
But in terms of this exact card, like number 2 trainer for this year, 2006, there'd be 3 of them, right? For the 3 divisions.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up. I have it written down how many divisions were in these years, like 2006 specifically, but that sounds about right, probably.
So like there's something like 3 copies of this, and there's something like 40 copies of the Illustrator. So why is Illustrator so much more valuable?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that a lot of the Illustrator value, and I'm not sure. So first of all, this art is in multiple years. So that does change it a little bit. And when we talk about like the original Pikachu trophies, which are like the first iteration of this, we could say, from the first, those to me should be the top of the hobby. This is first of all, I don't like the art on this one nearly as much as those original like hand-drawn ones, just personally. I forget offhand exactly how many years. I can look it up if we're interested, but for this video, we'll just hang out. Exactly how many years had that specific art. And so but it was a number of years. So there are probably, 20, 25 of those. But yeah, it's a great question. And I think it also goes to this point of like, maybe the first year of that art should be more expensive. How much more expensive? Not enough of these trophy cards have sold for those conversations to even happen that much publicly. The real reason why the Illustrator, I think, is so expensive is that when its price got established initially, they thought that there were only like 4 or 6 of them in the world. So they thought that it really was the rarest card. And then sort of price inertia, just I think price memory, price inertia, what have you, maybe people owning it, having an incentive to say it's the most valuable or keep it the most valuable. All of that came into play. When I see that card, I personally don't see it as the most interesting trophy card. Doesn't have the best fundamentals. It has great fundamentals though, and it's a great piece, historic piece to the hobby. Will always be. It's not a University Magikarp, which is another card in this option to me, which I would rather pay $375,000 for this card than I would $60-some thousand for the University Magikarp, to be honest. But there are going to be people who disagree with these sorts of things, and everyone, people have this much money, like buy whatever you want. I think there's also an incentive to buy a card like that because if you can throw it on Instagram and be cool and everyone knows about it, whereas a snap card isn't going to get the same type of attention, even though a snap card, there are only 20 in the world and it's a rarer card. So yeah, it's all kind of it.
How about this one?
Question.
We were just talking about this right before we started recording, that you were getting into these cards a while ago. Do you have one of these? And can you explain to me the blue back versus, green back versus no number?
Sure. Yeah. So I don't have one as high quality as this. Basically with Topsun, there are 3 different versions. There's the no number, which is thought to be the first printing, and this is thought to be maybe the first ever Pokemon card. So first ever depiction of Charizard could be this no number version. Then you have the numbered version, which also has the same blue back. And if you look at the picture, the second picture, you can see the blue back. So that's what blue backs look like. So you have the no number blue back, and all no numbers have blue backs. Then you have the blue back, which is thought to be, we could say, maybe the second printing. And then you have the green back, which seems to be more common. You can find more of them. Generally speaking, I do, over the years, have seen more boxes left of the ones with the green bags, that sort of thing. But these prices are crazy, in my opinion, just being blunt. I think this market has sort of been created, and I own, as I've said on this channel, probably not this card specifically, but of these kind of like blue back, one of the largest positions in the world. Now, I know there are people buying so many of them right now and grading a lot of them that they're surpassing my position because I've stopped buying them. And you can attest to this, like 2 years ago, I had a conversation with you exactly about this, saying that these are the first cards. I've been doing extensive research on them, very hard to find, very difficult to grade, very fragile. So I'm going to buy every single one, basically. And that's what I did. So I tried to buy out the majority of its market a few years ago, with the idea that one day people might hype them. And to my surprise, only 2 years later, that started happening. And so about 2 years ago,
was a card like this around, and how much was it going for?
About 2 years ago. So this specific card, there are very few of these no number Charizards, particularly in this grade, and 9 is a very high grade. So this card, I imagine, just throwing out a random number, I would have guessed that around that time, this card would have been about $2,000, probably. So wow. You can see that this card has had a 50 times growth, maybe. Now, I don't remember exactly what this card would have gone for, but this is out of control. Like this type of growth on this card, it's like a brand new market has been created around this card. Now, it is based on a real fundamental, which is like, this is the first one. These are extremely hard to grade. The booster boxes are hard to find. I know a guy who still has some.
He still has unopened booster boxes of this?
Of these, yeah. Yeah. Now, is it no?
Can you get 9s and 10s out of the packs, or that's rare?
No, you do. You easily can. So you have to worry about centering. The issues like these were in like a lot of like Japanese kids binders, and they are all disastrous. like the fragility of these cards is like way more than Wizards of the Coast. So they're just so beat up. Like I have so many of these cards, like have like kids like drew on them. like they have all these crazy scratches. I bought thousands and thousands and thousands of these, searching for mint cards to send in basically, and then ended up not even finding that many mint cards.
Wow.
Mostly just bought 10s and 9s from one specific Japanese seller, who has made an unbelievable fortune off of all of these things, and just continues. And he has all of these, and he has all of some of the Yu-Gi-Oh cards from this era, and just like all these amazing Japanese cards that, and I don't even know exactly, I've talked to him a decent amount, but I don't even know exactly how he got all of these.
He sends them, he ships them from Japan.
Yeah. He ships them. I'm on a video. Okay. Yeah. So he ships them. He started. So all of these started. So nobody talked about these. So I used to ask questions about these to people, to some of the experts in our field. I won't say the names, and people would say things like, "There's no market, there's no interest, it's too niche. Nobody wants these types of things." Okay, so what happened was, this guy started grading them. He was like the first person to grade them, and then started sending them into PWCC, which is where I started buying a lot of them. And at that time, I was probably bidding against a couple of other people. They were the first time there were no prices established. I was buying them for, I was buying my buy list was all the PSA 9 blue back cards. I was buying for like $12 to $13 each. All of the PSA 10s I was buying for like $30-ish each, 30 to 40. The most expensive ones like 50 to 60. And then all of the greens I was buying for like about 30 each. And all of the no numbers I was paying about double my.
So you're basically saying you could get like a popular Pokemon PSA 10 in no number for like $120.
Yeah, I was buying, no, not no number.
Okay.
The no numbers were very hard to find, and a no number 10 was extremely rare of any card. Even no number 9s were difficult to find. So I was paying, but when they would come up, so I don't own a lot of them, a lot of the no numbers, even because they're just very difficult to find and acquire in high grade. I probably own 20 to 30 high graded no number cards. I own probably 3/4 of them in blue and 3/4 of them in green, something like that. So the other cards I really like are the Prism cards, which are the same in each iteration, and those were quite difficult to pull, and quite difficult to grade. But these are the cards that have really exploded, even a lot more than those Prism cards, because those Prism cards were always very expensive, but these no number ones have just gone crazy. So yeah, so you could get, so I was buying like Blastoise. I remember the greenbacks are going for like 40 to 50. The blue backs were going, I think I was buying them maybe like 80 to 100. The no number probably would have been a few hundred. And there were other people, I think, going after these at the same time. And there were a few people I think recognized what was happening potentially or could happen. And so if a no number PSA 10 had come up on the market, which I never saw it did, that it could have gone for a few thousand, maybe even a Blastoise. And maybe the Charizard could have gone for 4,000 or 5,000. I can't imagine it would ever go for more than that, because you have to understand, you could buy like 2 crystal PSA 10 Charizards at that time for $5,000. They were going for 2,000 ish each. So comparatively, it was.
Speaking of which, I want to get to that also. Just the was it the crystal Charizard? I think sold for like 20,000 last time.
Sure. Yeah, that card has rebounded a bit. It was you can see it was at 18. There's an 18 one. That was actually high. I saw one sell for like 13 or 14,000, which is as low as it's got during this period.
Yeah, let's see just So I guess these are the only two that we see here, but during the peak, what was it again?
I think I saw one sell for maybe 23-ish. I don't remember exactly, somewhere in there. So it's basically, 21 to 23 is around the same price. For a collectible. Collectible items are gonna swing, in each sale a few thousand. Really, it's when a card halves in price or goes down like 60, 70% that I'm like, okay, something's happened here, or even 30, 40% maybe. But down 10% is just a different sale, two different buyers going for it.
How do you feel about this card, like compared to the rest of the hobby right now? I still get the feeling that it's just like undervalued because again, the set is a lot more like hard to find than other sets. The card is super unique. I think it's probably the best Charizard art ever, and the holo pattern is amazing, right? Like just so many things. And this went for the same price, I think, as the first edition Shining Charizard from Neo Destiny. And like in my opinion, this was just like a million times cooler. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I like this card a lot better. The art I like a lot better than the Shining Neo Destiny card. It's part of why I went after this one instead of that one. I mean, it's our
mascot. Yeah.
It's our mascot, which we don't ever say or talk about. But yeah, honestly, just because randomly we just put it there.
But I feel like we also both love it.
We both loved it. Yeah, it wasn't completely random, but it also wasn't like a conversation. We were just like, let's start a YouTube channel and we'll just throw this. I have this card. Let's make it the mascot right now.
Well, we could make, what is it, like an NFT now of ourselves on top of that card, and just a digital version, and then sell it for $20,000 also.
Yes, I'm going to start making NFTs, and I'm a big enough celebrity now in the community.
We're going to have ones of you dunking on the weekends.
Yeah. So, and we could talk about NFTs today too. And that's just insane what's happening there. But yeah, for this card, not the most difficult card to grade. There are quite a few of these. As compared to some other cards. If we compare this like those no number Charizards, even in PSA 9, there are a lot more of these 10s graded so far than there are of those 9s. But I would expect this to slow down at some point in terms of more being graded because Skyridge is so hard to find and it's so hard to find sealed product, and the sealed product's so expensive. We're not seeing Skyridge booster box breaks anywhere really right now, whereas we do see even Neo breaks, and we certainly see lots of Jungle and Fossil and Team Rocket, all these.
But that's not because Skyridge is so scarce. It's because it's so much less cool than Evolutions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Nobody wants to see Skyridge. I try to open up Skyridge. I try to give Skyridge out on this channel, and people just want Evolutions. and I say, well, if I could find any Evolutions, I would do Evolutions, but it wasn't printed enough. There was just none of it printed. It's so hard to find.
Speaking of which, actually, so I wanted to pick your brain on this as well, just the printing issues, right? Like Pokemon Company issued that whole statement about printing modern stuff. Do you think that when they get their act together in the manufacturing supply chain side of things, we're going to see massive reprints of all these sets that had lots of demand?
I have no idea. Yeah, it's a great question.
That is my hypothesis. I mean, I just remember like they just seem as a company super eager to print to demand. And for example, way back in the days of Roaring Skies, whenever it needed Chain Mini X, like a year later, they just like reprinted that set, right? Kind of like no warning, like, yep, Roaring Skies is back in production. Like, why would they not do the same for Vivid Voltage and just going and all the subsets, the special subsets too? But going back like the last 6 months, right, where there's been more demand than products and people could scalp Target and Walmart, right? Like, why would they not just print that as soon as they can reprint it?
Yeah, I think that if I worked for the company, I think my strategy would be we really need to work hard to make the modern product fun and affordable. And the secondary market over time will take care of itself as long as we keep creating great products and keep bringing new people into the Pokemon world. So I think it would be okay to a worthwhile financial move for them, obviously both in the short term in terms of just selling more product and making quite a bit more money, but also just keeping the hobby more have that balance of accessibility for modern, and then over time like vintage being more and more expensive. So
I think so too. Like I see it very differently. Like I didn't think the Roaring Skies reprint was a good idea necessarily, but this just feels so different to me when it's like a kid goes to Target and like can't buy Pokemon cards because someone can clean out the store and sell them for markup on eBay just because there's a literal shortage. It's like a totally different matter. It's like, let's just get this in the hands of all the people who wanted it. Maybe it'll be a little bit after it was originally released, but it's very different from a year later, just saying like, okay, like this card is valuable. Let's just make money off of it.
yeah, I mean, my thing is like, where is all this product going? Because I get, because the scalpers, it's obvious. It's like they make double their money in like very quickly, and they just rinse and repeat. They track these like shipments. They have like teams set up like legitimately, and a lot of them are
Wow.
from like the sneaker world, because the sneaker kids were doing that with sneakers, and they have like relationships with people at their local, targets, and they get alerted when it comes like 100% this is what's going on, like in lots and lots of places there, and people are making tens of thousands of dollars in the matter of like a week, couple weeks. So there's like huge incentive, huge money to be made. That's very obvious what's happening there. Who is buying all the product from these scalpers at double the price immediately with the idea, I imagine, that they're going to be rich? I mean, do people really like Pokemon enough to pay double or triple the amount of opening packs? I certainly don't. Like, it's to me, it's outrageous to pay $150 for a brand new Pokemon box and product right now. I'll just open my binders and like look at the cards I already have. Like, I guess I'm not, and some of it could be that, and this is part of the problem, right? Is that some people argue, again, people who argue against us say that like, it's just demand. Like, people love Pokemon so much, they want to open the product, and they'll do anything to open the product, even pay much higher prices. And I'm like, there might be a certain amount of people like that, but it just, my gut says that people are hoarding this product in their houses, and that it's just one person selling to the next person, selling to the next person, all adults hoarding the product, thinking that they're all going to be wizards of the Coast booster boxes someday. That's what I think is happening. I think that that's driving the majority of this, and or huge places doing that and doing buyouts. And I think that there's so much manipulation in these markets. I think what's happening, what a lot of people are doing, is they're taking huge positions in cards, and then they're buying a card for much higher than it ever went before, making a video or having their friend make a video about how it's much higher than it's ever been before. And then have a bunch of people come out and write in Facebook and Instagram that that's what this card is going for now. And then they sell 100 versions of it at that new price to other people who think that they're going to get rich, who they basically lied to and convinced that they're going to get rich, when really the thing that first moved that price was them do you see what I'm saying? Like, they bought
I think that kind of manipulation, right, is certainly happening. I think there's also just people making bad decisions. I mean, we don't know yet if they're bad decisions, right? But by looking at short-term price history. So to use myself as an example, right, this was like, felt like a lifetime ago, but when Shining Legends first came out, that was like one of the first sort of like exclusive set that you can't buy a booster box for, or with the second one, I think. Like, I thought it was a really, really cool set, but at the time, again, like, this stuff was so easy to come by, the modern product. I was like, I'm not even going to pay MSRP for it. I want to get one of those, the special premium ones that had like the Rainbow Rare Ho-Oh and the Shining Lugia, and you get the European version of the box that all the figures and all that random stuff for like $50 or something. And I was like, I'm just going to wait until it gets, I bought it when it was like $33 on Amazon. I was like, I'm not going to buy it for less than $33 because it went down. And then for years, like almost 2 years afterwards, you could still get that same European version of the box for like 30 something dollars on Amazon. And now it's like, God knows how much, right? That Lugia alone, I thought the last saw go for like something, between $50 and $80. And so if you look at that short-term history, like, you could buy these boxes, MSRP was less than $50. Now it's who knows how much. The same thing must happen for every single one of these exclusive subsets, right? The most recent one being Shining Fates. So of course, like, even at $150, which is 3 times MSRP, the ETB is a good buy. Right. But if you don't have the long-term prices, you're not even saying I'm such a long timer. But if you go back 3 years, 4 years, you're like, it's just not guaranteed in every single case. You don't know what's going to happen. And what's happened over the past year has been unique as a moment in the last 10 years, maybe all time, of Pokemon history.
Yeah, it's quite unique.
Yeah. And so I think, I mean, you can make an argument that the uniqueness is going to hold, right? That the demand is going to be there forever, and et cetera, et cetera. You can make an argument against it, but I think that the mistake that people fall into is when they don't even make that argument. They just say, well, this is the trend, so the trend is going to continue, because they're only looking at the short-term trend.
Yeah, and I think that people are going to lose a fortune. So I do actually come out and say that. And yes, of course, the counter arguments that the demand continues to grow, or that it's going to get even bigger before it goes down, or these sorts of things. And it goes to this NFT conversation too. I think people are just getting greedier and greedier, and are more and more scared than I've seen people before. The average person in these types of markets. And it's moving more and more away from value and what people enjoy, and searching for things that actually have meaning to them, and more towards, how am I going to make it rich? And the game, and either the game of making money, or the real anxiety and need and fear to make money because they're in a poor financial situation. And I think that all of this stuff is connected to problems in the job market, to for our generation, just people moving away from careers because careers just aren't what they used to be in terms of upward momentum, that this upward trajectory, that you could start in a good company that would treat you well and want to keep you there for 30 to 40 years, and where you'd really do something pretty meaningful and make a middle-class living. It's like the disappearing of those sorts of things makes more and more people become like entrepreneurs, and in this case becoming like flippers and resellers, and constantly looking for avenues where they can be the first there. And with this NFT stuff, it's all about that. It's like I'm getting there first, hyping it up, but it's all just like, it just all feels so gross and scary, and so for me, it's about protecting myself, I think, in all of that. And it's about being really brutally honest with myself about like what is valuable and what isn't to me, and not investing in and or collecting things because other people are telling me this is a good thing. And it's within Pokemon too. Don't let people tell you, including us, what you like and what you don't like, and what is valuable and what isn't valuable. Just be very careful. And I think it's the age of social media too. It's like the age of groupthink and hive mind, and
more so than every other previous age, because that is the story of
Exactly.
human history, but I think now it's amplified.
Exactly. So it's the same psychology repeating itself throughout human history, but it becomes amplified by the technology and by the fame and influencer effect, where certain voices or certain people get so much more. Gary Vee comes out and starts talking about NFTs, and now suddenly NFTs, which have been around for a while, and are now, I go into Clubhouse and it's like every room is NFTs and how we're all going to make a fortune and change the world. And it's like, are you sure? Or are you just trying to make a bunch of money off a brand new space because it's easy,
or legitimately excited about it because of the hype, right? I think, like you said, a lot of people are followers, right? And so if you see that someone else is excited about something, psychologically, that might make you excited about it too, for, legitimate reasons, not necessarily trying to manipulate a market or even make a fortune, but you're like, this is cool. Other people think it's cool. I want one too. Instead of, I think what you tend to talk about, which is, I want one because I saw, value or interest in it, regardless of how other people perceived it.
Yeah. And I do think, listen, I think that with something like NFTs, I think part of it is I am not super into the internet. Like, there are people who are really, I think, really into internet culture and want to own a piece of internet history. And like these internet artists who create all this like online digital art, with someone like Beeple, who sold millions of dollars of his art, I get that, because Beeple has a following for the past 12 years, has been creating this type of digital, online art content for many years. And people really appreciate and like him and have followed his story, and there's all sorts of value and community and relationship built into that artist and into that sort of digital art. And so when he made an NFT and it sold a lot, I get it more. But a lot of these things have no basis in anyone's life or history, and they're being sold as collectible. And as anything can be collectible if you attach the fundamentals of chase and the rarity, and you create these multi levels of rarity. CryptoPunks are a great example. It created this different levels of rarity, right? I think something like they're like, some of them are apes and aliens, and some, like, a few of them have like different features that are extremely rare and that are much rarer. So it creates this sort of hierarchy of like which one should be more expensive. And all of that, our brains get into that gambling and excitement of wanting the rarest one, this sort of thing. Okay. So it's very appealing. And then that gets mixed in with this, like, everyone online saying, I bought it for this price and made like $100,000, and you will too if you buy it and flip it and hold it. And then it's just one person hyping it up to the next person in these like intense echo chambers. I guess one question is, why does it bother me so much? It's like, if that's what's going on, why does it bother me? Why does it bother other people? And maybe asking you, like, why does that bother you? And I think it bothers me because it's scary how fragile human beings are on a certain level, and how manipulable we are, and how, and I'm going real intense here, but I shouldn't say it. I'm not going to say what I was about to say, but
you can say it.
Well, I was going to say, so I'm a Holocaust family. Okay. And so human psychology and groupthink is very scary to me. And I'm not saying that what's happening in NFTs is going to be used to kill certain people or attack certain people. But when I studied those periods, and I studied how average people did those sorts of things, and ethics are very fragile, and people do horrible things very easily if you gradually hollow out their ethics over time. So, and I think we're getting less ethical. I think we're having an ethics crisis right now in the United States, and an ethics crisis in business and entrepreneurship. And I go into these spaces and I feel like it's just one liar after another, pushing people to buy things that they don't really believe in just to make money and get rich. And it's like, there's just so many schemes just left and right. And all these online self-help gurus and selling courses and talking so much about value while providing no actual value other than them just getting rich and people getting obsessed with them and being in their like cult, basically. And I bring it up in the context of the Holocaust and my family's background, because when speaking personally, and this could be my bias, is like, I'm so deeply emotionally scared of those things, because I know how they impacted my family directly and other
the susceptibility of humans to fall for groupthink, and then for that psychology to be manipulated by people to accomplish evil things. Yeah.
And it's always greed and power, right? I mean, really, the Holocaust was about greed and power. It was about these becoming powerful. It was about bringing Germany out of this, becoming the most powerful nation in the world.
Obviously, it was the most egregious example probably in all of history, but history is the story of powerful people manipulating, others to basically do their whims. Like most of, all the way from the Roman Empire until the Enlightenment is basically powerful kings getting people to do what they want, right? With like 99% of the population living in literal slavery, which is what serfdom was. So actually, there's a book I think you'd really like. I might have recommended it to you before, and I'd recommend it to our viewers too, called Humankind by Rutger Bregman, where he basically takes a more hopeful view of human nature. And his argument is that actually we've been fed this narrative that human beings are susceptible to what you're talking about, They're on average bad, et cetera, et cetera. Fed that narrative by the media, but also by like social psychology experiments. And every chapter he goes through some famous stories and social psychology experiments and actually debunks them, right? And he's like, here's what the experimenters got wrong. And he comes out with a view of human nature that I think is more hopeful and more just like realistic and nuanced. And I won't give it away if anyone wants to read it. But I think it might make you more hopeful, and it might make you see these things as less indicative, right? That people are susceptible to doing terrible things, and more like, well, I'm glad that this negative impulse people have is being channeled to buy something that might be useless rather than to like kill people.
I think that's a good argument. And I also think that a small portion of society falls for these types of things. And
and you're very immersed in it, right? Like
exactly,
you spend a lot of time on YouTube and Clubhouse to do research for the channel and to meet people in the community. And for me, like I don't spend nearly that amount of time, so I don't even interact with that world of people who get sucked into these things. I don't even know they exist if I hadn't talked to you.
Right. And so an average person hearing this is going to be like, what is even this, or what is he talking about? And then the people within the community will probably be like, I'm jealous of their success. That's a constant, so I think that what upsets me is that there seems to be a group of people that just falls for these things over and over again, and seems for whatever reason to be more susceptible. And it always seems to be poor, lower socioeconomic people who are more susceptible to that get rich quick, to that sort of like rich people have the answer, like to like, and that rather than being like almost crushed by the reality of like how difficult and confusing life is for anyone. And if you were born into difficult situation, how much more difficult your life is going to be.
It's possible. But I don't know if we have evidence that that necessarily happens, right? There are also like a lot of these stories of people who become very successful off of even the things we're talking about, like collectibles, are people who did not start off very well. I mean, just look at like Rusty, right? Like classic rags to riches, amazing story, right? And like I think so many people are like so happy for the success he brought to himself and his family. And so obviously there are tons of people in the opposite situation, but you'd have to actually look at the evidence of how many people get worse off who started on a worse position. And the analogy that I would draw, I think, is it's very similar to the lottery, right? The reason I think that people buy lottery tickets is not because the expected value is positive, right? Because expected value is often negative, but it's the experience of being able to have a dream. And actually, it's interesting because I grew up obviously like just in a very rational family. As I was like, the lottery tickets are stupid. A lot of other things are stupid. Like, why would you ever buy something that's negative expected value? But my dad said that his father, growing up, they grew up in somewhat different circumstances in different country, and my grandfather would apparently buy lottery tickets once a week. And I asked my dad, like, why? Like, didn't you know that you're going to lose money? And it was money that was even more precious to you than to someone else who's like very wealthy, right? Because money could mean more for you, and what it can do for you. And he's like, yeah, but what we were buying was this idea, this hope, right? That like maybe we would win. And it's like fun to be in that feeling or that moment for a period of time, from the time that you own the ticket to the time that the winners are revealed. And so I think from that point of view, like I do see lotteries, especially state-run lotteries, as like egregiously manipulative, and it's like bad for people. But another view of it is like you're offering someone an experience. And even if the experience loses the money, well, the same thing can be said about, movie tickets and sports game tickets. Like you're losing money, but you had an experience, and what you were paying for was the experience. Same thing with like the GameStop thing. That's like Matt Levine's whole view of it. The guy who writes a new column for Bloomberg, is like what people were buying is like a lot of people knew they were not going to make money off of the GameStop thing. They knew that the stock was going to tank as soon as the hype died down. They wanted to buy into the experience. And so spending $300 to be part of this piece, this moment in internet and financial history, and getting to like hang out with these other people on Reddit and talk about it, like that's worth $300 to a lot of people.
The issue is that when people buy hope, and it turns out not to help them, or to be very short-lived, and it's almost a drug, and it doesn't actually move them forward. And whatever that is, you're buying a course that tells you, you're from a person who tells you, and Rusty's someone who sold people value from their childhood and actually has a real business and provides a service and doesn't charge and isn't charging people a course. So, but someone who is charging someone a $10,000 course or a $5,000 course. Okay. And they're using like predatory sales practices to basically say, if you buy this course, your life will be changed forever, for example, and you'll be rich, you'll get everything you want in life. You know, don't listen to those like 9-to-5ers, you know, like this is like, you know, escape from that life. And here are all the answers, like, and really, you know, push it down your throat. And the danger is that, first of all, a lot of these courses are run in a way that it's like, if you don't succeed, it's your fault. Not that the course is like a bunch of like stuff you could have bought for a few dollars, or like everyone already knows and is common sense, but that you didn't work hard enough, or so there's all these sorts of like sophisticated manipulative tactics that these people use. Like, if you have negative thinking, or you think that I'm negative, you're just jealous of my success.
Yeah, and those are cult leader tactics that you've highlighted before, but there are certainly tons of those out there. But I think there's also a lot of legitimate self-help people who legitimately help people, and what they're charging for their courses is like totally appropriate for the amount of work that they're putting in and the value people are getting out. So like anything, right? The internet and all of its offshoots, and even the subsets of the internet we're talking about, these are platforms, right, for people to do good things and to do bad things. And I guess I just generally have a more optimistic view that I don't think the bad things outweigh the good things. And I think some people get totally screwed over. A lot of people who get screwed over knew the risk they were taking and were in it for the experience. And then a lot of people come out ahead.
Yeah, and part of it's an interesting thing because we have different jobs here too. And you've never really talked specifically about what you do, but it definitely relates to the concepts that we're talking about here. I tend to work with, I shouldn't talk about it. So
we could go back to, well, do you want to, one last thought on this topic, and we go back to something fun that I want to ask about.
Sure. We can definitely, it's of course difficult when, and you know, you and I are going to have opinions, and those opinions are going to be based on our worldview and in our sort of narrow bubbles. And so you have to be careful with that and humble in that always when you have these sorts of things. So, but just speaking from my sort of biased worldview or perspective or opinion and things I've seen in my life, there are these types of systems selling these types of courses or events or what have you. It's a lot of everyone convincing themselves that there's value where there isn't. There's a lot of like, instead of like learning an actual skill and becoming an expert in anything, it's a lot of people with like a charisma to like get on stage and make someone feel good for a few minutes, and then almost get addicted to them and develop like a dopamine addiction. I need my speakers, my hit of like that guru or that person's hit. And instead they could be spending that time like learning an actual skill. They could learn how to like play guitar. They could learn how to play chess. They could learn how to like actually invest and do the real fundamentals and the work, not just sit there feeling good and motivated. So I think feeling motivated and feeling hopeful is extremely valuable to get you to do anything that's hard, and is very important. So people who give like really great motivational speeches can be very valuable and very helpful. But I think understanding what value those people actually bring, and if we bring it back to this NFT or these collectible markets or these sorts of things, and what I've seen, to me, it's just endless amounts of hot air and endless amounts of people just saying how brilliant everyone is and how brilliant they are. And everyone's profile saying that they've sold millions of dollars and everyone's a genius and everyone's this and everyone's that. And it's like, none of us are that smart. Like, none of us are doing anything that sophisticated or complicated. It's just scary. Like, it's scary. The how divorced from reality I feel like people are in these conversations from my perspective of what is reality scares me. And I know it's just so vague and general, and you're not in these conversations that I'm having with people, and the audience isn't. So I'm not sure what value this conversation brings to people or how they're going to take what I'm saying. and because people are going to take what I'm saying and apply it to their own lives and their own experiences, and it may or may not apply, right? And so they may think that I'm being overly negative, and I am if you apply what I'm saying to your specific situation. And
right. Yeah, but you do have insight into a world that some of our viewers probably have, some of them don't, and it's interesting to hear about, even if it is depressing.
Yeah, I guess the value. Well, and to put a positive thing is like ground yourself in what brings value to you in your life. Like, turn off the electronics and the gurus and the nonsense, and ask yourself and take stock of, what brings meaning to you? Who do you feel close to? What are the different factors in your life? And it's a complicated question. And what skills do you want to learn? And spend some time learning skills, and set some goals, set a vision, the things that these people will tell you, right, to do. That, people will tell you those things in these types of things, but get off. Don't listen to me tell you it over and over again every day and pay me $10,000 to do it, and sit in these rooms all day, listening to
our
people.
Patreon is only $5 a month. So,
but it's barely any value, it can feel good to listen to people tell you to live your dreams and build skills. And it can be much easier than actually building your skills and like living your dream. And I think that it becomes this almost consumerism situation where the only person really getting rich and living their dream is the speaker on stage, and the rest of people are just like funding it and depressed and not doing, so whatever. I'm sure it's a huge mix. I'm sure that there are some people listening to this that after they listen to a speech, they go out and they like accomplish a bunch of things because it gives them a lot of like great energy and it helps them forward. And then they think, well, that was very helpful and worth it. And I guess it goes to all these sorts of, how much should you pay for something? How much value is there actually in it? A $10,000 Tony Robbins course versus like buying like a $10 book that has like a lot of the same ideas. How much motivation do you get from one or the other, etc. But yeah, we can get back to.
Well, I think the advice can be summed up. Basically, don't make stupid decisions. And the best way to not make stupid decisions is to listen to us. And anyone else who says that we're wrong is being stupid. So don't listen to them.
Yeah, exactly.
But one thing, this brought me back to something you were saying earlier about like finding joy in the hobby and going after what you want. I think I realized through doing Pokemon and Magic and other, trading card games, I think the thing that I personally find one of the most fun aspects is gambling on collections. So I loved, like, when I was first getting into the Star Wars CCG, flipping collections. And I realized, it's for me a lot of the same fun of like opening a pack, but could be times 100, right? Because collection could be 100 times bigger. You could find things that are a lot more valuable from lots of different sets. And just the EV on packs, whether it's something that's currently in production or vintage, is almost always extremely negative. And like, I just don't enjoy things that have negative expected value. I'd rather take risks that on average actually put me out positive. And that's the experience I had flipping collections for Star Wars CCG. It was just so much fun, right? So you buy a collection for $40, it could have some amazingly valuable stuff. Even if it doesn't, I was able to over time, make money from it, which I put back into just stuff for my own personal collection. But now it's drying up because more and more people are getting into that. And I imagine Pokemon went through the same thing, but maybe like 5 years ago, or like 3 years ago, where it's just so hard because it's so competitive now. So many people are doing it. You can't, the collections are no longer EV positive because you have too many bidders. So what are the other markets you're looking into, right? For me, I was mentioning this to you before we started recording, that there's a different Star Wars card game, the TCG, trading card game, instead of the CCG, collectible, customizable card game, that was created by Wizards of the Coast, designed by Richard Garfield, the same guy who designed Magic. So I think it has a lot of potential as a collectible as well. And right now it's like hardly anyone is into it, although there are still people who actually play that card game. And it's just fun again, right? I was like able to like find a collection, try to find valuable stuff and flip it. And because it's still dry enough and not popular enough, you could still, make margins. And again, for me, it's not about the margins because I put that into more cards. It's about the experience of like taking a risk that paid off, which is so fun and gives you that dopamine hit that makes you want to keep coming back.
Yeah, I think you touch on a few really good points. I think one is understanding what you're doing. Are you investing in this space and buying and flipping primarily to like have a great time? And then if it's primarily to have a great time because the returns aren't like so worth your time or what have you, or a central part of your income, it opens up a lot of other avenues, because it can be really fun. Like building out and being first to market can have its own really fun experiences where it can feel more risky. It can feel like they're undiscovered things. You can see like bigger price swings. Like all of that can be really fun to kind of engage in and guess and kind of play in. When you think about just trying to make money and focusing on just trying to make money, I think that's where it gets tricky to determine the risk reward of going into these other
for sure. And I don't mean to imply that like I think it's necessarily EV positive if you do it a lot. It just to me feels like a better bet than opening a pack. I love the experience of opening a pack, and especially when I think I have a high chance of coming out ahead. And so to me, it goes back to, I think, what I was saying before, like I'm buying the experience, right? And if in the end it basically costs me nothing because I can make my money back, which thankfully has happened for me up until now, like that's even better, right? But even if it didn't, you know, I don't make my money back from buying movie tickets and all these other things.
Yeah, I think that I mean, certainly opening packs is not a good way to make your money go the farthest in any hobby. I think when we think about putting opening packs aside and thinking about, should I put my money into Pokemon or should I put my money into Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh or Dragon Ball Z or Star Wars or Harry Potter, you know, first it's a collect what you enjoy, collect what you love type of thing. I think second, it's people. There are plenty of people who are far too, I think, focused on and far too negative on these other IPs, and don't have a and really missed out on the growth in some of these other things, which frankly is largely driven by speculation and is very dangerous and a bunch of nonsense, but also came from a place of like, people love Dragon Ball Z and Harry Potter and Marvel, and people from the Pokemon world, I think, were like, people only love Pokemon. And it's like, no, that's not true at all. Like, you know, so it's part of it's getting outside your bubble and actually going into those communities and talking to people in those communities and getting a sense of like, you may not love Dragon Ball Z, but people are diehard fans of Dragon Ball Z. And there are lots of those people. And there just weren't those market makers who came in and understood how to build markets and establish markets like there were in Pokemon. So it's not the reason Pokemon, the cards are so valuable and successful is not just because Pokemon is such a great IP or because we collected these things as a kid. It's also because of people like Rusty, people like Scott and Gary, and people who wanted to make this, you know, and actively started YouTube channels, and Leonhardt and Unlisted Leaf. You know, these people are the reason why people are in large part associating so much value with Pokemon and some of these other IPs. This whole dead TCG, CCG thing, I think, is way over inflated as a reason why something can exist. Just because modern cards aren't being made or more cards aren't being made of something doesn't mean that those cards can't be extraordinarily valuable. If there are enough people who find those cards, really like those cards, see the value.
I mean, Van Gogh isn't making paintings anymore. Right?
Exactly. So it's not a rational argument. It's an irrational argument. I think the smart part of that argument is, how are people going to be funneled into it if they're not continuing to create the game? Because the argument is kids will continue to be funneled into Pokemon, and new generations will continue to funnel into Pokemon because they can keep opening the games, they can keep playing the video games, these sorts of things. But they can get funneled into the cards and these old things in other ways. They can get funneled into these cards through Pokemon, which is what happened to a lot of people, right? A lot of people got funneled into Pokemon from sports cards. People get funneled in through YouTube channels, right? If big YouTube channels, Dragon Ball Z YouTube channels, started opening score product, this stuff would probably blow up like very fast. Okay. So because it's great, I think, you know, and I think a lot of other people think it's great. Now, if I'm alone and I'm wrong about that, and a lot of other people look at these things and don't love them and enjoy them and have a ton of fun doing it, then I'll be wrong, and that's totally fine. Luckily, I love it, so I'll have collections that I'll enjoy forever, right? But from that investing perspective, it's understanding the rarity and getting a sense of what's happening on that supply side, but then understanding where did the demand in Pokemon come from? How is that built? And how could that be built in these other places? And why hasn't it been built yet in those other places? Has it not been built in those other places because people don't like these things, because they don't have that childhood connection? Or has it not been built because there isn't someone out there saying, it's okay, you can buy these, they'll hold value because other people like them? And that's what happened in Pokemon. Is you saw adults opening the cards, you saw the values going up, you saw people talking about the values going up all the time. And that when people see a Pokemon card, now they associate value with it and money, because people were holding money next to Pokemon cards for years to get people to equate that and that sort of confidence. Same thing in the sports card world. Same thing in the like firearms, and it's all of that sort of stuff. What do you think crypto and gold and all these things, it's all us associating value because we see them together over and over and over and over again and agree on it over and over again. And initially, I think that gets sparked by there has to be some sort of intrinsic property in it that sparks some of that inherent value. And then I think it's also met and combined with good salesmen. And I think that you get both. And I think when you have both good salesmen and branders and good inherent properties, fundamentals to something, that's where you see explosions in people wanting to grab something. But I think if you don't have really good inherent fundamentals, you need constant more and more of those salesmen telling you it's great all the time and trying to get more people in and to hold it up. And I don't think that is sustainable. And I think that it can lose, particularly when there are only so many people that can ever come into something. Okay. So when the salesmen get everyone to come into this thing that doesn't have much value.
Yeah. Like a pyramid scheme that runs out of subscribers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It works as long as they can keep getting more people in, because the lie they're telling everyone is that this stuff is valuable. And in reality, it is right now. And it keeps going up in value because they keep bringing more and more people in. But as soon as they stop bringing people in, now people stop making money and they go back to the salesman and they say, what the heck? I'm not making money anymore. And then that salesman deletes their accounts and runs away and disappears with their fortune. And then that person panic sells. And then it causes a collapse of the entire market because no one actually wanted the item. So that isn't what's happening in some of these collectible categories. That is what's happening in other of these collectible categories, in my opinion. And so I think both things are happening in all of them. There's both a lot of manipulation and hype and salesman-y stuff trying to get you to buy things that you don't need, that you don't want, with the idea that you're going to be rich one day. And there's also a lot of joy and enjoyment people are getting from like creating binders of all these cards and rediscovering their childhood and talking to others and building community and opening packs, which is extremely fun. So figuring out where those lines are and how to protect yourself. And as an investor, when I'm thinking investment wise, it's about going to the things that I think have the lowest amount of hype and the highest inherent value. And the most people saying this thing could never be valuable. It's exactly why I was buying a bunch of Topsun. Everyone's saying this things could never be valuable, anti-hype, right? It's whatever, we need a word for that, but it's like people irrationally hating on something when it's actually like quite great.
Yeah. Which might be a signal in of itself. I do have to wrap, but yeah, this was great. Well, think of the right title for this video.
Yeah, we talked about a bunch of just like random stuff in it. So,
and speaking of pack openings, were you able to get any Shining Fates?
Actually, we have a couple people, supporters of the channel who sent me, one sent me a box for us to open on the channel at some point.
Oh, amazing.
I thought maybe we'd do like a giveaway, maybe like a 5K giveaway. We're quite a ways away from there, but eventually type of thing.
Yeah.
And I've had the policy, I haven't told you this, but like lots of people have wanted to send us gifts, and I've just had the policy of like, we're not accepting gifts on the channel and these sorts of things. But I do kind of like the idea of maybe doing it like once where we like do a giveaway with everything, and and just as an experiment to see how we all feel about it. I've always felt like giveaways are cheesy and like a kind of fake way to grow your channel, where you're not actually bringing like that much substantive value, and you're almost tricking your audience to like that but saying that like I'm going to give away like a little bit of money, and that's going to get a lot more back to me, and people are doing it because they're aware of that transaction.
I think the intent matters, right? Is it to attract people to join your lottery, or is it to say thank you to the people who have been watching and giving their time?
Yeah. And so I think that if we can do it, I have to see how I feel about it. And if I feel like it is a way to thank you, or a way to create something nice for people type of thing. So I don't know.
Yeah. I agree with, I don't think we should accept any gifts except the PSA 10 Crystal Charizard.
We'll accept those. Yeah.
Exactly.
You can send those to Rafi.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Jake.
And I'll send all your hate mail to Rafi. I'll put his
I'll take both. If I get one PSA 10 Crystal Charizard for every 10,000 pieces of hate mail, I could live with that ratio.
Yeah, I would live with that too.
Bye, Jake.